Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, the time has finally come. It has been a long journey. We've been working on trying to produce a casting here for a little small 9-inch straight edge for some time now. I've had several roadblocks along the way, working with the foundry, getting some kinks worked out of our pattern and kind of doing some testing, making improvements to the design and so on and so on. But I'm happy to say that I'm finally ready to start offering up my little 9-inch straight edge castings available for sale. So this is what we'll be talking about here, is showing you the casting, and I'm also going to go through the process of taking this raw casting, machining it, scraping it, turning it into a functional item. My plan is right now we're going to be offering the castings. This is going to be a project that people can purchase these and actually turn it into something useful. I've done a lot of videos on scraping. It'd be a great opportunity for someone that's interested in learning that skill to purchase one of these and kind of follow along with my videos that I've done in the past and also in the future, and basically learn the art of scraping. And it's something that we use when we were rebuilding machines, fine-tuning machines, getting things back like they should be. So without further ado, let's zoom in here. I want to show you the casting. I've got this one here. This is a raw casting. We're going to be going through the process on this one. I've got this one over here. This is one that I have completely done. This is actually the one that's going to be sent off for the Christmas giveaway that we just did recently. I finally got it scraped in during one of the scraping classes we had about a week ago, and it's ready to go. But we're going to basically turn this one into a usable tool like this. And as crazy as it sounds, I don't have one for myself yet. This one's going to be mine. This is going to be the one that I put into my collection and that I use when I'm rebuilding machines. So let's zoom in here and show you what we got. So again, we have the raw casting here, and this is what the finished product can look like, and we're going to be doing this. So these castings are done by my friend Clark Easterling over at Windy Hill Foundry. Clark has a little small foundry set up, and he's growing that into a bigger and bigger business. He's really been great to work with on this project, fine-tuning my designs, and we made some changes to the patterns just to make it easier for him to cast. So, you know, we went through several versions of the patterns over the last however long it is we've been working with. Clark, he casts these in gray iron, and that's one thing on a straight edge. I've been told you want to use gray iron and not ductile iron. The gray iron will actually stay flatter and doesn't move around as much as the ductile iron does, so it's better for a straight edge. And when he casts these, he also goes and puts them through a heat treat process. Basically, it's a stress relieving process, and goes through a cycle where they heat them back up to a certain temperature, ramp it down slowly. And what that does is it relieves the stresses inside this casting so that when you machine it and later on, it's not going to move around as bad. So again, we're going to go through the process now of machining it and scraping it, but I wanted to show you this, the back side of it. Got the part number in here. So it's an RT9SE, which basically stands for Rucker Tool 9-inch Straight Edge. And I think Tom Lipton one time said, if you're going to make a product, you need to be proud and put your name on it. So I put my name on these. It says Rucker, and Rucker Tool Company is kind of my idea. I might have some more ideas and things that we offer up in the future under the Rucker Tool Company name. If you're interested in the castings, they are for sale now. You can go online and order them. They're on the Vintage Machinery store, so go to store.VintageMachinery.org, and it brings up a storefront, and there's not a whole lot on there right now, but we do have these castings on there. You can order those through the website and get them shipped out to you. At the time of me doing this video, the price on these is $115 plus shipping. And it'll calculate your shipping based on where you're located and so forth on the website. I'm hoping I can keep those prices where they are. We're just going to depend on several factors, and over time that price may increase a little bit, but to start out with, that's where we're at. And that may seem like a lot of money, but when you look at what all is involved in this and even my cost in this, and you look at what other straight edges are selling for, even just castings, I think that's a pretty reasonable price that we've got these up for sale. So let's get in here. We're going to start the process of turning this into a finished product. First thing I like to do is go ahead and paint this thing before you scrape it, before you machine it. It just makes it, you don't have to worry about masking things off later on. It's probably just a matter of preference, but that's what has worked good for me. You can paint on whatever color you like. This one's going to be mine, and most of my straight edges are black. I kind of like that color on them, and that's what I'm going to go with. So you can choose whatever color you want to paint yours if you get one. We've let the paint cure on this actually for about 2 days before I got a chance to get back here in the shop, and we're getting ready to start our machining process. And I start by cutting the bottom of this thing flat, and I like doing this on my horizontal mill. It's just an easy setup for me. I lay this thing down, I can clamp it down real rigid. This could be done very easily over on a vertical mill where you just set this in a vise sticking straight up and just go mill the bottom. It can be done either way. Like I said, I prefer this, but if you don't have a horizontal, you got a vertical, no big deal. Still done easily. Now, one thing I'll comment on, when you're doing this bottom, we purposely, when we designed this, we added a lot of extra metal down here on the bottom of this, and a lot of that has to do with we were having some issues in the foundry with this being a little bit on the thin side in the molds and cooling too quickly, and that was causing some hardness issues. In fact, that was part of the reason why it took us a little while to get some things perfected and some of the design changes we had to make. But we've solved that by adding some more mass to the bottom of this, and when we did that, it really makes it very machinable and very scrapable. But one thing I would kind of just tell you is that don't feel bad about taking some metal off of this. I'm going to take about 1/4 inch off of the thickness of this bottom, kind of get this outside layer off, get it a little bit thinner. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to, but I would at least recommend taking at least 1/8 of an inch off just to kind of get this outer layer off, because you could run into some hardness issues if you don't get that off of there, because it just has to do with the cooling in the foundry. So anyway, enough said. I'm going to crank this thing up. We'll cut the bottom of that off and move on to our next step. All right, I'm taking a fairly heavy cut on there, but it should come right off with no problem. This horizontal mill, we got plenty of power. Everybody always asks about speeds and feeds. We're running at 250 RPMs. That's our speed. And we're doing 3.5 inches per minute on our feed rate. And you can see it's cutting that like butter. That's the beauty of these horizontal mills, is that you can really take off a heavy cut in one pass. You can never pull this off on a vertical mill, like a Bridgeport or something like that. Next operation here, I've just flipped it over on the side we just machined. We clamped it back down the table. I'm going to trim up this back side. And again, I'm taking a little bit off of that. It's a little bit wider now than what I really want it to be. And you can machine yours. I purposely made these where that bottom section is probably a little bit larger than what it should be, but you can machine it to fit what your needs are. So if you got a compound or something you're working with that you only got so much room in, you can make it narrower, or if you want a nice broad flat surface down here, you can do that as well. Anyway, same setup here. We're just gonna cut that back off, get a nice square cut on it. Set up over now on the vertical mill machine, and I've wanted to mill this 45-degree dovetail angle we have. So what I've got is some angle blocks. These are V blocks that I'll put in a vise, and I basically just got it clamped in place with some C clamps. I think I got a pretty rigid setup, although I'm going to make light passes on this. I just don't want to hog much metal off. This clamp setup appears to be stout, but I just don't trust it like I probably should. Sitting the wrong way. I'm just going to start by making a pass down through here. Make sure I just touched off on that. So this is just a light pass. On a rough casting, I usually like to start by making a light pass because you never know how much contact you're going to make going across there. If the part's crooked or the casting may not be flat all the way across. I don't want to be hogging too much on one side or the other. Looks like I'm making a pretty even cut, which is nice. All right, we're coming, well, starting to pick back up again. Feed in 25 thou. And just kind of take my time and do this. This might clean up the whole way right here. And you know what? I'm happy with that. We're gonna grind a little bit over on the surface grinder. Well, there's just a little bit on this edge. I'm gonna take another, I'll just take another 25. And we should be plenty good then. All right, I'm happy with that. Now for the last of the milling operations, I'm just gonna skim the top of this. This is completely optional, and the only reason I'm doing this is because I'm gonna go to the surface grinder, and I need this surface over on the surface grinder to mag down on. If you're just gonna mill yours and go straight to scraping, there's no reason to have to do that top, but I wanna get that top nice and flat. Interesting, you see it's throwing a few sparks on that thinner profile. That's what we were talking about with the hardness issues that we were having. If you look, it's a little bit shinier on these ends. That's where that profile was thinner and it cooled down in the mold faster and had some hardness issues. But it's really not a problem, at least in the areas that we're really working on down here. But it milled fine, and this is ready to go to the surface grinder. We're over on the surface grinder now and getting this thing ready to start grinding. This grinding will make the scraping process go by a lot faster. You don't have to do this. You can just mill it and be fine. But anything you can do to get it as flat as can be will greatly help. So I'm dressing my wheel right now. And that should be plenty good. Raise it up. We'll come in here and touch off. All right, we got a little spark there. And just go across that. I'm going to start by this top. That's what we're going to mag down to on the back side. And you can tell it's taking a little bit off. I figured it wasn't too flat because it was so hard on the ends, it was going to mill differently. Remember, we've seen those sparks there, but this grinder is not going to be affected by that. So it was a little bit lower in the center there. Kind of what I was expecting. We'll make a couple of passes across here, get that cleaned up, have a nice flat surface, and we can flip it over and do the bottom. And I'm gonna, all right, come back across there. Feed down a couple of thou here, probably 2 thousandths. Take another roughing pass back across that. All right, we're just going to come back across. Again, we're in the process of letting it spark out now. I didn't downfeed at all this pass, but you can still see occasional spark in there. So this is a real important step when you're surface grinding to get a really, really flat surface, is to let it spark out, let it finish doing its job, and just make a couple blank passes back and forth. You know, we're down in the 10,000ths of an inch range when we're doing this, but the flatter we get it on the surface grinder, the easier it is going to be to scrape in. And next we'll do the 45-degree angle face. I'm just going to use my V-blocks here. Mag that down. I'm going to go ahead and redress my wheel while I'm right here at it. Okay. All right, we're touched off there. Raise that up just a little bit. A bit more. And we got a little bit of a taper in it. We'll work that out. Take that off. All right, I'm going to feed down and we'll work our way across this. That's pretty well got it cleaned up. I'm gonna go ahead and spark that out, and I think we'll be ready. Done with that one. After grinding, we're going to go ahead and start scraping. And to do this, I'm using my Biax power scraper. And I'll start by just putting a crosshatch on here. I just like to have that to get a good print. And then we'll take it over to the surface plate and start checking it out. So I'm just going to go across this thing. Put a nice crosshatch on here. Probably do this twice. Twice in each direction just to start with. And back to the other direction. And I'm going to go ahead and just do another crosshatch just to give me a good starting point. And I'm going to stone these. Takes off any burrs. And now let's take it over to the surface plate and check for hot spots. Put it up in here first. I just want to hinge it, showing high on that corner, showing high on that corner. put it on the blue, or the black in this case. And showing high in my corners. And we got some contact in there, so let's go back and scrape. So it's actually kind of showing high in three corners. This one over here is real high, and this one over here is real high. This one's just a little bit high. I'm going to hit those real hard and then just knock off those black layers. This way. Okay. Clean this off. Restone that. Put some more contrast back on. And back to the surface plate. All right, back from bluing, and still showing high in the two corners, but not just right there on the corners, more in these areas. So let me knock those down a little bit. This is just a smudge here. So we got a little bit of contact starting in about right there. And a little bit through here. Clean it up and back to the surface plate. Alright, so continuing on, we're kind of spotting kind of on the front and back, looks like we're a little low in the middle. I'm just roughing right now. I'm not really trying to hit individual points at this point. I'm just trying to knock down these higher areas. We'll start chasing points once we get our coverage a little bit better. All right. You kind of see the process. I'm going to do a few more rounds. I'll bring you back here once we start getting some coverage. Well, I've been making several passes back and forth, and I've got pretty good coverage now from one side to the other. So I've got fairly equal spots all through here. Now, I'm not done yet. I want to get more points of contact per square inch, you know, and I'm arguably a little bit light up in this area, but most of it looks pretty good. But I think what I'm going to do now is go ahead and flip it over and start on the dovetail. I don't like to finish it too much because I've noticed that when I start scraping on this side, it's probably going to make some changes to the bottom. It's very minor changes, but I kind of like to get both sides good coverage and then go in there and kind of start hitting some of these high points and touching it up and splitting some of these points and getting a little bit better points of contact. So anyway, I'm going to flip her on over and we'll get set up. I'll show you guys how we'll do the dovetail. Same process. I got a little jig to hold it, where it makes it a little bit easier to do. So I got this in a little jig here. I built this a while back, and it allows me to work on this dovetail at a flat angle rather than at an angle. Makes it a lot easier. And just like before, we're just going to start out by putting a crosshatch on here that we can then go to the surface plate with and start checking it for flatness. So a couple of roughing passes, doing it completely blind here, no blue. And it's really important when you're scraping to have that checkerboard pattern so that you're looking at those individual high points and seeing how things are really laying out for you. All right, I'll come back the other direction. All right, we'll come back across one more time and then take it and print it. Over here on the surface plate, I want to make sure I got ink all the way out to the edge here. Make sure there's no trash on there. And to do this, what you want to do is come in. Got a little bit of shavings on my part. I don't want to get that on my surface plate. Make sure it's clean, yeah. And you want to make sure your part is clean. You're not getting any metal shavings on it. We'll come in here and we'll just drop her down, and you can kind of hinge it, have to support it a little bit, and then print it. And you can see where we're high, and we'll start scraping. Looks like we're high on the ends, a little bit low in the middle. So same process as before. If you want to know more about scraping, you can go back and look at some of my older videos. I've got quite a few of them, and I'm not really trying to teach scraping in this one, but just see the process of taking one of these to finish. So I'll do a few passes on this and hopefully get her brought in, and we'll bring you back and let you see what it looks like. Well, this dovetail came in pretty quickly. Didn't take much work at all. And I'm pretty happy with that. That's running anywhere from 30 to 40 points per inch, depending on where you check it at. So when you're checking points per inch, basically what you do is you put something up on here. This is 1 square inch in there. And I'm not quite an inch wide, but it's pretty darn close. And you count the individual points in there. And, you know, for a machine, probably 20 points is good. For something like a straight edge, you want something with a little bit more contact. So, but this is right in the ballpark of where we want it at. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to flip it back over, do a little bit more work on the bottom. I'll recheck this, and I think we're getting pretty darn close to having this one done. Well, there you go. A little bit more scraping on the bottom, a little bit more points of contact, and again, we're probably between 30 and 40 points per inch. And that's good enough for me. So we're going to call this one done for now. As always, whenever I use these straight edges, I always check them right before I use them and touch them up as needed. But this right here looks like it's in great shape. And just like that, I think we've got this finished. Got the dovetail scraped in. Got the bottom scraped in. And went in here and did a little bit of highlighting on my letters with some gold just to make it stand out on that black. I always like the way that looks. And very happy with the results. This is ready now to be used. And she looks nice over here with the rest of my straight edges. Starting to put together a little collection here. So got a 24-inch parallel casting back here. This is a 4-foot parallel. This one's made by Challenge. Got a 4-foot Brown and Sharp straight edge. This is just a flat type. There's no dovetail on it. My 3-footer. This was my first straight edge I ever got. This was made by Shield Manufacturing Company out of Long Island, New York. It's the only straight edge I've ever seen made by that company. I'm sure there's some others out there, but that doesn't seem to be very common. A little 18-inch Kingway, and then my 9-inch Rucker. And I'm hoping to be adding to my lineup of straight edge castings down the road. Going to start trying to put together a 12-inch casting that will be very similar in appearance to this one, just a little bit longer. And who knows, we may even do some larger ones down the road if we can get them done. So maybe more to offer down the road. If you're interested again in purchasing a casting to make one of these up for yourself, just go over to my website. The store has those in there. You can order them directly there. It's store.VintageMachinery.org. And they are available there for sale to do exactly what we did in this video. And there we go. Nice little quick, easy project. Not too bad actually at all. All in all, total time on this, probably between 4 and 5 hours. That was including the machining, the grinding, and the scraping. I found that if you grind these and get them really close, they scrape in pretty quick. If you just have to machine them, you're going to have a little bit more scraping to have to do to get those cleaned up, but it's completely doable. And honestly, for a beginner, this learning the art of scraping, sometimes having that little bit of extra work is actually good for you in the long run because it just gives you more practice and fine-tunes your skills. So not a bad thing at all. But there you go. The Rucker 9-inch straight edge. We're going to put it over there and have it available. Next time when I need to do a little small compound or something on a lathe, this is the perfect tool to use. When I did my Monarch lathe, I had my 18-incher, and it was really, it was a little bit on the big side. It was usable, but a small one like this would have been perfect for that application. And that was kind of when I came up with the idea to make this. So anyway, nice little thing to have around the shop. That's going to be a wrap, guys. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comments are appreciated, and we'll catch you on the next video.